We will get started. We have 2 public hearings this evening, and for the public hearings, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand, be recognized by the chair, stand up, state your name, and when someone is speaking, please do not interrupt, allow them to have their say, because we wish everyone to have the same option, to be able to stand and have their say. Again, this is just a public hearing. The first one is a discussion on question 1, which will appear as a referendum question at the November 8, 2016 election. Shall fluoride be added to the public water supply for the intended purpose of reducing tooth decay? Who brought this question up?
I'm sure there's folks in the audience that can answer that far better than I can.
Okay. Yes, stand up, state your name, please.
Hi, I'm Norm Labby, Superintendent of the Kennebuck Board and Wells Water District. The district is in support of an initiative by some water district customers who've got enough petition signatures this summer, over about 3,300 of them, to bring this forward as a referendum item this fall. And the way this works is that the wording of the referendum is established in state law in Title 22, Section 2656, and it states very clearly it's only written in one way, as you just read, whether or not we want to add fluoride or discontinue the practice of adding fluoride. We have been adding fluoride since 2013. The district is of the position that we should discontinue the practice of adding fluoride, so we are in support of a no vote on this fall. Again, we supported the initiative to bring it to vote, but unfortunately the wording is only written in one direction. So this is going to require no vote to cease the existing practice of adding fluoride to the water. Now, with respect to the town of Arundel, the way Maine state law is written, being that the district has a franchise territory that includes all of Arundel, then all of Arundel voters will have the opportunity to decide, even though we only serve approximately 100 customers in Arundel, mostly along Route 1. That's unlike most of the other communities we serve. Some are more complicated, like Biddeford, New York, where we serve a little piece of those towns, and the town's served by another utility. We have to work with the town clerk to separate that out. But in Arundel, every registered voter will be able to decide for themselves. The end result at the election will be the total votes cast in all 7 communities we serve. So it doesn't matter what each individual town votes, because we can't add or not add water. We have one, everybody drinks the same water supply. So we hope the majority of the town of Arundel, even though they're not water district customers, we hope they give it some thought, educate themselves as the pros and cons of adding fluoride to water, as opposed to normal dental hygiene, which has many options other than fluoridating the water. We hope they just get educated and vote accordingly on November 8th. Have any questions?
Why does the district support it?
The district supports it for several reasons. One is that, I should say, I'm glad you asked that question. Thank you. Several reasons. One is that the district's water supply currently has between 2 and 3 times as much natural fluoride in it than it did when the vote was passed in 2002 to start adding fluoride. Number 2, recent studies have shown that our population is consuming much more fluoride than we did when fluoridation of water was first proposed some 60 years ago. It's everywhere in what we eat and drink now, many more sources of fluoride than we used to have. Number 3, it's also proven that fluoride works on the surface of the teeth. There's no real reason to swallow it. It works on the surface of the teeth. It's a chemical reaction with the enamel of the teeth, which makes it a little harder and more resistant to acid. So the best way to use fluoride to avoid cavities is to use fluoridated toothpaste, brush a couple times, 2-3 times a day, use fluoride rinses, and if you can afford it, get a varnish, fluoride varnish put on by your dentist. Just basically good dental hygiene, avoiding all the sugars, taking care of your teeth that way is much more effective than drinking fluoride. Now, when you're drinking fluoride, when it's in your mouth, it's working on your teeth. But once you swallow it, 10 or 20 minutes later, that fluoride level is dissipated, and it's in your body doing no good for your teeth. And another reason, which I don't get into because I'm not a scientist or endocrinologist or toxicologist, there are a lot of health effects related to fluoridation because it affects many parts of the body, not just the teeth. It's a very active chemical, like fluoride, like bromine, iodine, and chlorine. Fluorine is part of that little family of chemicals that are very reactive and want to react with anything they can get contact with, and they like calcium. So any calcium in your body it wants to react with. It doesn't have a brain, it just does that, because that's the way it is. And there's other organs in your body that it affects. So to us, fluoride as a water district, pulling it all back together here, as a water district, we feel that we should not be adding a chemical to water that isn't directly related to improving the quality of the water, that we should not be in the business of mass medication. We should be educating the public as to the pros and cons of it, let the public decide if they want us to continue to add 20,000 pounds of hydrofluorosilicic acid every year into their water supply. Thank you.
What's the cost of it?
It's about 20,000 a year. We're about a $7 million a year operation, so our position isn't cost related, it's health related.
Okay, Jack?
Yes, with regard to even the somewhat higher level through this edition, has that level been proven unsafe, or is it still within a range of safety?
The proven unsafe is a very nebulous cloud of scientists that are saying one thing and then the scientists that are disagreeing at the same time. For us as a water utility, there's enough question and enough science out there to say that it is an emerging endocrine disruptor. It's been identified in the last 6 years as a strong toxin where it wasn't before, along with manganese, which is common in well water. That's going to be coming soon to the headlines. Fluoride and manganese are both listed as toxins. And we're finding out with better technology, trace amounts of things that we're used to in our daily lives we thought were good, like BPAs and plastics, all these other things, are really toxins. So for us as a water utility, if there's enough doubt in it, it doesn't have to be proven scientifically with 100% of the scientists are saying. If 50% of them are saying there's something wrong with it, we question it and we don't want to add it anymore. Because there's enough doubt. When in doubt, be conservative and don't add it unless you need to.
Yes, the lady over there. Stand and state your name, please.
Yes, I'm Janice Hansen, and I'm the chair of the campaign to reconsider water fluoridation. And I have some handouts I'd like to give to you, if I may. And I'm giving you these handouts in answer to that question, shall fluoride be added to the public water supply for the intended purpose of reducing tooth decay? And this is a picture of Greg Cargelis, who is the chief operator at the Kennybunk Port and Wells Water District. And if you'll notice, he is wearing hazardous material gear that is required by OSHA. Employees have to wear this when they're working with fluoride because it is so toxic. And fluoride actually comes from the wet scrubbing or the smokestacks of the phosphate fertilizer industry. And it is considered a toxic waste substance by the EPA. And it's the EPA that requires wet scrubbers on the smokestacks to collect the fluorine gas. And that is what is actually used to put in our drinking water. It's combined with water, so it's hydrofluorosilicic acid. And it is this toxic waste substance that is being put into our drinking water. And I think most people think it's the same thing that's in toothpaste, the sodium fluoride, and it's not. It's a very different substance, and it even can have some other toxic elements in it. I think at the water district, they found arsenic in it once. So it's something to really consider. Do we really want something this toxic and poisonous in our water? Do we really want to drink it? And do we really have to, even to protect our teeth, because we have so many other options and ways of getting fluoride that are a lot safer? So we just wanted to say that. Thank you.
The lady next to you had her hand up, yes.
I'm Julie Garish, and I'm part of the committee as well. I wanted to, first of all, thank the people in Arundel. Over 600 of them signed our petition, so we could have this question on the ballot. I'm very grateful for that. The question, shall fluoride be added to the public water supply for the intended purpose of reducing tooth decay, was a problem. As we were gaining signatures, most people thought that we were promoting fluoride and they didn't want it. So we had to correct that problem. But Maine law dictated the same question be used with no explanation. The voters need to know they do not need to swallow fluoride to reduce tooth decay, because in 2006, the Center for Disease Control stated the major benefit from fluoride is topical, as Norm said, on the surface of the teeth, not systemically by ingestion. The major. While securing signatures for the revote to stop adding fluoride, two concerned mothers, one of her son, the other of her daughter, shared with me their regret that they had been diagnosed as having dental fluorosis. My heart still cries for them. A no vote on the fluoride question on November prevents you from hearing such concerns in future. And the lack of adding soda ash will improve the taste of the purest water we have a right to drink. Thanks to Norm Labby and KK&W for their deep rethinking and the decision to tell us the truth about fluoride.
Jack, you had your hand up?
Yes, Jack Reeds. I vaguely recall actually writing a paper on this subject 60 years ago. And at the time, it was under very heavy discussion, and there wasn't a lot of evidence one way or another. And it sounds like that's still the situation. There's more evidence, but still an argument. All I can say is that as a random sample of one person who's made it to age 85 so far, I have been thoroughly fluoridated in California and Massachusetts and Maine and North Carolina. I'm still here. And while my teeth are not in great shape, that's, I think, really a reason for age. I don't have a strong opinion one way or another, but I think the issue is not all that serious, frankly. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Dr. Lyman?
My name is Ross Wyman, and I'm a dentist in Kennebunk, and I've been here for something over 54 years. I'm a maniac. I grew up in Orono. I went to high school and college in Orono. And then I went off to dental school, and about that time, studies were being done for the fluoride issue. The first two towns in the country that were fluoridated were Newburgh and Kingston, New York, and they started out with an amount of 1 part per million in the fluoride. To back up a little bit, the reason the Public Health Service wanted this done was because they discovered in the southwestern part of the country there were areas with natural fluoride where nobody or very, very few people in towns or cities or counties in that area had any kind of tooth decay. So through their studies, they decided they would try at least 2 towns with 1 part per million fluoride. It was very successful. People all over the country gradually got into adding fluoride to the water. It's been a fabulous success. I know of no studies where anybody has ever suffered any kind of disease when fluoride has been added. I would have to disagree with Mr. Labby in that very young children seem to benefit very much from the ingestion of the water long before they get to the dentist. And I won't bore you with everything that I've written down here. But in the years that I've practiced, a long time, I've seen such a change in the mouths of the people here in York County. If we take people in the retirement age group, or just approaching retirement age, most of them have a lot of cavities over the years. Some don't have any, some don't have any periodontal disease. There are some people that never get anything, no matter how badly they abuse their mouths with neglect or sugar or soda or whatever. But there are those people are few and far between. But I see the age group, the retirees, or people just approaching that with many restorations in their teeth, some crowns in their teeth, even some missing teeth, and their children, the next generation, is doing very well. The amount of cavities that we see is vastly better. Some, from what Mr. Labby mentioned, is the fluorides that are applied, fluorides in the toothpaste and whatnot. But the next generation has virtually zero amount of decay in the mouth. And periodontal disease and teeth are very important as to the overall health of a person. The gums are the first portal of entry for bacteria for many diseases. I won't go into all of them. Teeth that are high in fluoride content have less deposit on them. Deposit contributes to periodontal disease. Deposit, by deposit I mean tartar and talcum. You've probably heard those words more than deposit. Any dentist that I could bring in here, and I was asked to come to speak, will tout the benefits of fluoride. And to have it taken out of our water supply, I think, is a vast disservice to the citizens of this part of York County.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, then.
I have a
Yep,
question.
go ahead, yep.
I have a question for the dentist.
Sure.
So, in your opinion, would tooth decay be, there's less tooth decay in the next generation to come? Could that be just because there's a better understanding of tooth decay and, you know, we're able to get more information out to folks, or?
I have a tough time believing that all of a sudden the next generation decided they would be better brushers as youngsters than their parents were, or eat less sugar, or I just don't think that happens. I have to think it's the fluoride, and the studies that all the dentists get show that fluoridated water is the best, cheapest way to fight tooth decay. It's going to be a crime to take it out of our water supply. He mentions $20,000. I don't know what that is per capita. It's not a big number.
Any other questions or comments?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think anytime we keep any chemicals or anything we add to anything is a good thing. I think the next generation, just the fact, even the schools, you guys changed your whole diet in the past 5 years. I think kids are eating healthier because we're educating kids to eat healthier. Everybody knows how bad sugar is nowadays. Everybody's cut down on sugar as far as I know. They tell you how much it rots your insides and everything else. I think the education is more of that all over the place, of to eat better and stuff, and I think that makes a big difference. I think any chemical we can keep out of anything is better.
Thank you. No more comments? Then we will close that public hearing, and the question will be on the ballot in November. Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next public hearing. Discussion on renewal of automobile junkyard permits for AIM Recycling USA, LLC, DBA, AIM Recycling Arundel, and Marcel Dubois, DBA, Dubois Motors. Have the code enforcement officers been?
Yes, Madam Chairman, yes, the permits have been reviewed by code enforcement officer. We have a letter here from planner in reference to one of them's conditional use permit is still good. But I think primarily this particular permit is for state regulatory reasons and relates directly to that. Based on the information I have, permits have been, fees have been paid. I think everything is in order.
Any comments about on this public hearing?
I just want to know how it affects your fees.
Then we will close that public hearing, and we will call the meeting to order, and we start our meeting with the pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And approval of the agenda. You have something to add
Yep, planning board update.
on the committee and board report?
Yes, please.
Anything else? We're looking for an agenda. We have some agendas somewhere.
I think there was one under the table.
Anything else? That's it?
Seconded.
All in favor? Simone isn't here. Who's taking notes?
I am.
Yeah, okay. Public forum. This is our part of our meeting where anyone in the audience may talk about any item which is not on the agenda. So, John?
Yes. Madam Chair, I'd like to read a statement to the Board of Selectmen. And I understand the board has all received copies, so I have extra here if you want them. The title of my statement is "If I Was a Selectman in the Case of Brookside Estates," and it reads as follows. If I was a selectman, having recently been informed of difficulties encountered with Brookside Estates, I would be curious as to the facts of the case. I would want to know just what occurred with an otherwise straightforward development to bring it to the board's attention. I would want to know if there were deeper implications for the town that might need the attention of the board, that is the Board of Selectmen. So if I was a selectman, I would ask the following questions. Number one, what exactly is the issue? In my notes, the project surety was not paid until more than 6 months after it was required by ordinance. Question number two, since this has been an issue for many months, why is the board only hearing about it now? My notes, this problem occurred shortly after the project was approved by the planning board on March 10th. The applicant is required to give notice and get approval to begin 5 days prior to beginning construction. The approval includes verification that the surety has been received. However, the applicant began construction immediately without giving notice and without required approval. Question number 3. Why was this problem not immediately addressed by the CEO, as it was a clear violation of ordinance requirements? My notes: normally, the CEO would approach the applicant, notify that the project is in violation, sometimes allowing a reasonable time to address the problem. If the problem is not rectified quickly, the CEO issues a formal violation. In this case, he would also issue a stop work order until the issue is resolved. More than 3 months went by without action. Question number 4. Why did the town manager take this matter out of the hands of the CEO? My comments: this is a most curious break with normal protocol, as it was a simple violation that would normally be handled by the CEO in a straightforward manner. Even if there had been a gross oversight where the town lost track of the project, one would still expect the town manager to delegate action to the CEO. Question number 5. Does the town manager actually have the legal authority to supersede the authority of an active CEO? My comments: the CEO is supposed to act as an independent agent to avoid the possibility of political influence. There were no apparent unusual circumstances to justify taking over the duties of the active CEO. Should CEO non-performance have been the issue, I would want to know the details and the consequences. Question number 6. Why did the town manager find it necessary to consult legal counsel for this case? My notes: the issue is about as clear-cut and simple as it can get. There was an unambiguous violation of the land use ordinance which had a simple, unambiguous consequence. There are no gray areas. Therefore, no counsel should have been required to understand the appropriate enforcement action. Question number 7. Why did the town manager, apparently upon advice of counsel, give the applicant another 30 days to make payment of the surety, even though at that time it was already more than 3 months overdue? My notes: the purpose of a surety is to ensure that the applicant has a financial capacity to complete a project. This is why it is due at the beginning of the project. If the applicant is not able to raise such a surety, it puts the town at financial risk of having to complete the project. Allowing a substantial delay in posting such a surety likewise puts the town at risk. Why would a town manager do this? Question number 8. Does the town manager have the legal authority to override the requirements of the land use ordinance by granting such extensions? There is perhaps a technicality here because no formal violation was ever issued. That would further beg the question, why not? But the ordinance is very clear as to when a surety must be paid. Question number 9. Why, on July 1, when the applicant failed to post the surety even after the extension deadline had passed, did neither the town manager nor the CEO issue a violation and stop work order? Question number 10. Why did the town manager request a meeting between the planning board and the applicant 6 months after the project was approved and the infrastructure phase for which the surety is required was all but completed? My notes on that: the planning board had made it clear on several occasions that it expected the surety to be posted before it would take any further action on this project. The meeting merely restated that position, wasting valuable planning board time, but accomplishing nothing. There was apparently a hope that a settlement of some type could be negotiated, but the planning board does not have the authority to negotiate the land use ordinance, a fact which the town manager certainly knows. The meeting was totally unnecessary, but made it appear as if the planning board was responsible for the situation. Well, obviously, I am not a selectman, but a member of the public. From my point of view, it appears that the applicant received benefit which placed the town at financial risk. From a public perspective, this case looks, at best, mismanaged and unethical. It might even have legal implications. That is not the type of government I want for my town. Even if it turns out that there was no impropriety, those in positions of government are taught that even the appearance of impropriety is enough to cause concern. And the appearances are certainly there. So as a member of the public, I ask the Board of Selectmen to investigate this matter, ask probing questions, and take whatever action is necessary to ensure the citizens of Arundel that the town aspires to clean, open, and accountable governance. Thank you.
And all the selectmen have a copy of this, and I'm sure we will take this matter under consideration. Anything else under public forum? All right, approval of the minutes of September 12th.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve those minutes. All in favor? Okay. And committee and board reports. Have something for the planning board?
Yeah, planning board meeting of September 22nd. We had a couple of pending applications. First one was Arundel Commerce Center. If you remember at my last update, there was an issue with the well right-of-way and with a budding landowner. They haven't gotten that taken care of yet, so the applicant came back and asked for an extension. The board has to rule 30 days after a public hearing. It was getting real close to that, so the applicant came and asked the board for an extension. That was granted. Brookside Estates, the review of site walk findings. They had discussion on the buffers. They got a letter from the landscape engineer stating that that it was okay, however, there was a wrong ordinance stated. So what they asked was, the board was okay with lot 1, but they asked that to get verification of the correct ordinance. The ordinance that is in question is 884B11, and they wanted confirmation from the landscape engineer on that plan, and they still haven't made a full decision yet on lot number 10. New application, M. Welch and Son, registration for an existing contractor yard. The board determined that there is no need for a site walk and a public hearing at the next meeting on 10/13. Planners report, Hillsong Development wants to move forward with phase 2 of their development. The initial conditions of that development was that they couldn't go into the next phase until the second egress out onto Liberty Acres. That's not an ordinance requirement, it was just a condition that the board put at the time. And most of that is usually based on trip generations, and they're far from under the trip generation. So it'll come back to the planning board. They want to move along, but they want to keep just one egress for the time being. So it'll come back to the planning board to review. The other item was a request from Rick Laflamme to reconsider accessory dwelling units, that section in the ordinance. There was a big discussion on that because that request came back in April, and there was a discussion on why it took X amount of months to bring that to the board. So the board is going to have a discussion going forward on exactly how agendas are set. This was a planner's report, and it was felt that planner's report don't fall under the auspice of the the agenda, you know, it's something for the planner to bring up to all the boards, so they're gonna have a discussion on that. And we adjourned at 8:39 p.m. Questions, comments, Phil was there too, we can answer something if anybody has questions.
Any other committee and board reports? And let's get to the manager's report and the follow-up on the Bartlett Bridge meeting.
Yes, Bartlett Bridge meeting last week in Kennybunk, MPO representatives were there, reviewed the plan with the audience. Right now, they are starting construction of June of next year and will be completed in November of next year. So their plan is to move forward very quickly with that project. It's all set and designed. The issues that we had, again, they have put in a temporary bridge that will go adjacent to Walker's Lane and behind the booster station for the water department, and then back out onto Route 1 on the other side. It will be capable of carrying all the loads that we normally drive on Route 1.
That two-way bridge?
Yes, it'll be a two-way bridge. From what I understand, there'll be any lights that'll need to be put up. The issue we had was we wanted to ensure that we take a look at Walker's Lane to make sure that we could have that come out as at a T to the new bridge and the road once it was completed. MDOT asked us to go back and look at the layout of the road and to see where it lies within the right-of-way. The right-of-way is a 3-rod or just under 50 feet wide. So Roger and I will go out there and take a look at that along with Terry. We're also going to contact the abutter or the property owner to the south, heading towards Kennybunk side. It seems that'd be the most appropriate way, perhaps, to realign the road. So we'll see what we can do in terms of realignment. The other issue was to ensure that whatever we needed to have in terms of attachments to the bridge for any sewer, upcoming sewer locations. As you know, we're still beginning our preliminary discussions with both the sewer districts on both sides of us, looking at extending sewer on the Route 1 corridor in Arundel. But with the bridge going in, there'll be an area within the bridge to place the pipe. And so we're going to make sure that that's done. Depending on how encouraged we are with moving towards Kennybunk, we may even slide a pipe in there so it's all done and set, so in the event that it ever happens, we're set to go. So those were the issues. I put MDOT in contact with Wright Pierce to discuss that issue and how that gets laid out. So that's all I have on the Bartlett Bridge at this point.
When are they doing the one in Kennebunkport, do you know?
No idea. It did not come up.
Yeah, I don't know.
Around the same time from that, the last.
Yeah, because I understand that in Kennebunkport, they're gonna close that bridge. They want to put a pedestrian walkway across so that there'll be a walkway, but there'll be no traffic going across that bridge at all. So if that bridge is closed, that's gonna throw all the traffic on the Durrell Bridge and Bartlett's Bridge.
I'm not sure when they're doing that. One thing I did leave out is that they will have 8-foot shoulders on either side of this bridge to accommodate bicycle traffic, and then in the event that there's any long-term thoughts about putting sidewalk from Kennybunk through to Arundel, there's adequate space in order to accommodate that as well.
Walker's Lane is a 50-foot right-of-way?
Yes.
Anything else? Anything else? Okay. Old business, the public forum, 919, follow-up.
Yes, we had over 40 people that were in attendance last Monday to discuss with you two options or two thoughts that you wanted to get from the public. The first one was on the possibility or the thought of putting on another patrol deputy as a dedicated patrol deputy for the town. And the other issue was looking at the alternatives for the town hall relocation and town hall site for future construction. As you know, we came up with 3 spots that we expressed an opinion of at the public forum. We gauged and had a lot of information from the public. So I guess for me, from my perspective, is where do we go from here? Does the board as a group feel that we have some sort of information from the public on both of those issues to sort of make some definitive direction for me in order to move forward with? And I guess that was my thought of placing it there, so we could have just a little more discussion on it as to your thoughts as to how the forum unfolded.
I think the police forum gave us enough information to send this on to the budget board for something for next year's town meeting. You have figures, I believe, from Kennebunk, because the question was asked about what it would cost to add.
Right, I initially had spoken to both of those municipalities about the possibility, and the way they wanted to approach it was a little bit, I thought, more of a financial burden to the town. I was thinking that geographically we were extending the footprint of what they needed to patrol, and that there would be a minimum amount of new employees that would be able to accommodate that. I think both of the communities looked at it a little bit differently, that they felt that because of its vastness and its ability on Route 111 and Route 1, that we needed more of a patrol presence and would require more personnel. And so that discussion was had. I know with Kennebunk, their main concern was patrolling Route 111, particularly if there were accidents out there, and that they normally, during accidents, they normally have 2 patrol officers that may, if they're on, they will be there. That would leave parts of Kennebunk unpatrolled, so they were concerned about that, and whether we could break that up and share the Route 111 corridor in a different way. That discussion was had. I heard some of the public here express that we should go back and revisit that. I'm not quite sure how the board feels about that. I thought that the sheriff's presentation was good, provided you some data as to what their activity is within our area, and their opinion as to whether they felt that a new patrol deputy would be beneficial to the services in the community. So I'm uncertain where you want to go at this point, other than going to the budget board if that's what you want to do. I know I talked to some of you briefly that perhaps maybe it was something that you would bring back as a, if in fact you endorsed it, bring it forward as a separate warrant article for general discussion at the annual town meeting, so people could weigh in on it individually of the traditional one deputy that we presently have.
I'd like to throw my 2 cents on the sharing. We've tried the sharing piece before, state police and county, and that was more of like a week on, week off type sharing, if I'm not mistaken. Like state police did 1 week, county did 1 week. That showed some signs of confusion to dispatch, and I'm just afraid if we tried to pie out Arundel with a piece to Kennebunk, a piece to Kennebunkport, a piece to county, that from a collaborative standpoint, like EMS and fire trying to work with police, it would just be a nightmare. So I would recommend going one direction and staying with it.
Yeah, I mean, how would that work from a dispatch perspective?
Well, I know that we're dispatched through Biddeford. County is through the county dispatch. State police is through the Gray dispatch. So, yeah, you have some challenges in terms of.
Yeah, so if somebody calls 911 on, Friday night at 1 AM in the morning, and we have one deputy that we're sharing, we have something with Kennebunk or Kennebunkport, how does that dispatch know who to call?
That would be something that we'd have to, you know, logistically have to set it up. It definitely would be a nightmare.
Biddeford patrols Route 111 extremely heavy to the town line. There's only 4 more miles to the end of Arundel. If we could have a contract with them to just take care of 111, that would relieve our deputy a pretty significant amount of time. And they're there every single day, all hours. There's only 4 more miles. I've seen them come over the line and ticket people that were actually in Biddeford, obviously, on the Biddeford side, and they come through and they don't catch up with them till they're in Arundel. There's nothing wrong with that, but they're already there.
So are you suggesting that I should approach Biddeford and see if they're interested in that type of relationship?
Yeah.
Thoughts?
If they do the dispatch anyway, they'd be dispatching their own people. That, to me, would be very confusing.
I think we're gonna have difficulties sharing police with surrounding communities. It's just gonna be, it's always a turf issue, or it seems to be always one. And it's just be a problem. You're always gonna get complaints from these citizens in the other communities, why are our deputies over in Arundel when they should be? That's just a perception. And as far as the public hearing, I mean, there's other faces here tonight, maybe they wanna pipe in, but I didn't see overwhelming support for more police, but, I mean, it was about half the crowd, I think, raised their hand while they were here. But maybe it makes some sense to, as you suggest, I think you're suggesting 2 warrant articles. One would have 1 deputy, and then we want to take on 2. Maybe it makes some sense to do that through the budget board and then to the end of the town meeting.
Okay, does that give you some?
Yeah, I'll put it in the budget book for thoughts with the budget committee and the board as you begin to weigh in on those issues. The second one, the public forum on town hall relocation. My thoughts on the discussion there, it appeared to me that on the 3 sites that we had, the Route 1 site that we own, next to Weir's Motors, the site, the Route 1 site on the corner of River Road and Route 1 across from Rundle's Market, and the Limerick Road site, that there was an overall majority opinion that the Limerick Road site was one that you should focus on. That was my feelings from there. And I'm not sure how you wish me to proceed in terms of, that's your thoughts? Should we focus on one and move forward and see what we can do? Obviously, we'll have to have some more discussions in terms of cost and those kinds of things, but I guess right now, I'm just trying to get a sense of where you think we should put our eggs.
Well, I think that the Route 1 site, that site that's at the corner of Route 1 and the River Road, is a great commercial site. And I would hate to see us take a piece of good commercial property, which Arundel doesn't have much on Route 1. And I would hate to see us take a good piece of commercial property out of the tax rolls. That's my opinion on that site. So I think, to me, that site should be dropped from consideration.
Did we get a new number for all the land on Limerick Road?
Not yet. I have not pursued that at this point.
I think we should.
Me too.
Okay?
I think we need to get a pretty clear picture of why the existing site is inadequate. Not only for the reasons that Simone very articulately described, but ADA, zoning compliance on the lot we are, We have to put elevators in, what does that do in terms of, certainly can't put it on the interior, if we're gonna stay within the footprint, it's gonna be the outside. All of that, I think we just have to, I mean, a number of people I thought were saying, you know, we got $300,000, why don't we use that to fix up what we have? I think we should let them know this isn't gonna work.
When we get to do that study and bring us that report.
Well, I think we can first start a little bit in-house as to establish the footprint, what kind of zoning regulations that we may or may not be in compliance with. If we had to expand the building, right now, we've probably got, what, about 2,500 square feet? We're looking at 8,000 square feet in the new one. So I don't know what kind of additions we may or may not be able to put on that site. So we can do a lot of that in-house to try to get some of that information. We can look at the, whatever code violations that we have, safety violations that we presently may be under, and try to get some sort of cost analysis on that as well, in order to upgrade that. So I think there's a lot that we can do. And I sort of agree with Tom. It would be important if we're going to justify making a move, that we actually have concrete information relative to that piece and what it is and what it isn't.
Yes, I mean, that not only is the building inadequate, the vault is terrible. The upstairs is even worse. The cellar is deplorable.
Has the people who wanted to remodel that building, what do they want to do with it, been in that building?
Yes.
I mean, really? Right, really.
Yeah, I
That
know.
ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
Huh.
But it's good to have that information. This is what we have now. This is what's wrong with it. This is what it would take to correct it, if it could be corrected on that site. And this is what we're proposing.
Yeah. You know, I was with a group of guys who we used to always fight with whether about a new building for the town and stuff like that. But as you get older and the years go by, you start to realize that, you know, the town of Arundel really needs a nice, good town hall, and it needs the area to really be a town. Because you go through Kennebunkport or Kennebunk, they have an identity, okay? The town of Arundel really does not, okay? And the idea of fixing up that little shack in the back, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, please, please. And I can tell you, I would fight with the guys whoever thought of not, you know, starting a new town hall now, because, you know, if you got some property that's in a good spot, like Limerick Road property and stuff like that, you know, I would have bought the whole damn thing so you could do what you want and expand as much as you need to. You know, bite the bullet on this one.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So what's our next step?
I think, when I get some information about,
I'll get,
I mean, I think
I'll get
Steve
some
told us it's gonna
information
cost $200,000 for
for
4 acres.
Yeah.
And Phil, and I agree, we should let's get an idea what it's gonna cost, it's
Okay.
maybe 30.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and approach
It was
the,
36 or 38.
approach the owners on that.
And it was the other issue of the, you know, the land trust. that
Right.
We might be able to work something out with that.
Yeah.
Don't know how
That's,
much.
that's, what land trust, we don't have a land trust. Land trust has gotta be funded.
Right.
Uh,
I understand.
It'd take a long time to fund enough money, I think, but.
Okay, Rich?
He's
I understand your point about the property on River Road and Route 1, but I think we need to know what the cost of that is going to be. Because honestly, I don't think spending $50,000 an acre, which is what the price was quoted last Monday, for 4 acres of land on Limerick Road is feasible. I don't think it's financially or fiscally responsible when 2 years ago, the land across the street sold for $12.5 an acre. I don't see a 400% increase in 2 years on that land. So I'd like to know what the cost of River Road what would it cost us if we were to buy that and fix that property?
The Route 1 property.
The Route 1,
Yeah.
yeah, I still like the property that we own, but I'd like to know what the numbers on the other piece look like.
Yeah.
What I heard the other night in relationship to conserving land was that the Kennebunkport Land Trust may be interested in expanding acquisition
That's what I heard initially too, but then when the discussion went on, it was clear to me they were talking about
Yeah.
another land trust that would be unique to Arundel. That Kennebunkport wasn't gonna spend money on Arundel property.
And I don't disagree with you, but part of what I think when you're talking about land conservation, people kind of mix up the words, and the only reason I have a little bit of experience with that, and that my sister and I gave some land to a land trust down in New Hampshire that we acquired through inheritance. And I have to tell you, it was like learning French for me, trying to understand easements, conservation, and that whole process. And I think that, a couple of things. I think if the Kennebunkport Land Trust is interested in expanding into this area, I think that's something that should be explored, not necessarily by you folks, but the other thing that I think might be interesting to consider is to form a conservation committee in town where folks could be having conversations about what land would they like to see protected and so forth. As it turned out, the piece of land that we gave in southern New Hampshire is in a little town of about 400 residents. And when people ask where that town is, people say, why do you want to know? And, Arundel's kind of like that. Why do you want to know? But just prior to our giving the land, the Conservation Committee had identified lands within the town that they wanted to see conserved. And quite by accident, we walked into their next Conservation Committee meeting and said, we would like to give you this piece of land, and how can we make this work? So I think there are, off the track of the town hall, but I think there was lots of language that was going around, and perhaps it needs to be clarified a little bit better.
I think there is a group that have formed to look at working with Kennebunkport Land Trust, but I believe it would be.
I think Sam can speak to that.
Oh,
I can
go
speak
ahead.
to
Yeah,
that.
Sam.
I have 2 points.
Yeah.
The first is, one of the sites we're considering is privately owned by Steve. We spoke to it last week. He won't wait forever. And if we don't move with some alacrity and some determination to address his needs and talk to him concretely about, yes, we're interested in your land, let's negotiate a price. He may move on. So we can analyze this forever, but I caution you not to, because he won't wait for us. That's my feeling of this. As far as the Conservation Trust, you're right, there is a group that has had meetings with the Conservation Trust general manager. It's been discussed by their board. The concept is not one that we would invent our own and try to create our own 501c3. It's that we would come in underneath their organization, learn from them what we would do. It would be, as our thought would be, an Arundel Conservation Trust or an Arundel Land Trust or whatever name it's decided on. But it wouldn't be formed by us out of whole cloth. It would be coming in under their leadership, under their auspices.
A division of Kennebunkport Land
A chapter of,
Something.
or
Yeah, yeah.
something.
Yeah.
We would in turn, of course, require that we have a say in the governance of the Kennebunkport Conservation Trust. Whether it be membership on the board or whatever. The funding, Tom, you're exactly right, would have to come from here. That's always the hard part.
Oh, yes.
But we wouldn't be starting from scratch.
Well, I think that's where we're going anyway. We're going to be talking to Steve about
I'll do
all
that.
of that. Okay, Donna?
To play off something you mentioned, and then also what Sam was just talking about, the piece of property on the Limerick Road, if it doesn't fall into a combination of municipal use and conservation, or any combination thereof, my guess is it's going to go for house lots. That in turn has an economic impact on the town with regards to kids in school and all of that. So that's a net tax loss. So if we let that go to house lots, so to speak, and at the same time, take a piece of commercial property, which would be for the town a net tax gain, and use it for municipal use, we have lost twice with one decision. And that may be something else to throw into the mix in terms of consideration.
But we still want that that piece of the puzzle. We want to know.
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely, gather all the data you possibly can, because out of that will come the appropriate decision. But I was listening to both of those pieces, and I said, you know, we could lose in two directions at once.
Anything else on that subject? All right. Recommendation on the container purchase.
Yes, as you know, we opened bids on the 50-yard compact container for location at the transfer station. We received 3 estimates. We received one for $9,687, another one for $8,300 delivered, and one for $6,200. Both Terry, Merrill, and I reviewed the specifications of all the information that was presented by all 3 vendors, and it would, based on what we reviewed, it would be our recommendation to go with the low bidder in this case, $6,200 from East Coast Compactor.
Doesn't Pine Tree Waste take care of the containers now?
They haul them for us. Right now, they're providing us a spare 50-yard container at no cost. But the equipment up there is owned by the town. So the container, the compactor itself is all town owned.
Were they invited to bid, or was it just?
Yes, I believe one of the bids is from, it's from Casella. Wayne Paul and Casella. Yeah, they are. And they were the high bid.
I make a motion that we go with East Coast Compactors for a sum of $6,200.
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion on that? All in favor? And recommendation on the brush truck purchase.
Yes, Chief Mullins here if you need to ask any specific questions, but he has provided to you a quick memo in reference to a review of the RFPs for the brush truck. And he has listed the trucks as presented. And it is his recommendation at this point in the fire departments to go with Industrial Protection Services, IPS, $115,755. The chief can answer any specific questions that you may have.
You have a question, Dan?
Yeah, so it looks like, you know, the light poles, phone packages, those all look pretty darn close. What makes a difference? What was the difference? Was there something other that they were offering that has a $20,000 difference between the lowest and the high, or just that's how it came in?
That's just the way it came in. They didn't give me any breakdowns, so all I got was the end result. So there was no way for me to figure out, you know, why they're so much higher than, or why this one's so much lower. I would speculate, and it's pure speculation, that it would all have to do with what they paid for the chassis and how much they're gonna pass on to us or any of the equipment. I mean, I don't know. I don't have the breakdown. All they gave us was the bottom line, other than the 2 options.
So they gave you the bottom line. Do we know that it fully met the specs that went out?
The IPS, Reno, Tardif went over them, and I went, IPS met the specs. Fouts Brothers, which was represented by Bulldog and the Lake Region Fire, there was a couple items we had specified to have an individual driver's seat or go in with 2 small, 2 bucket seats in front of the cab, so the driver would have plenty of room to drive. Neither one of the, other than IPS, they're the only ones that offered that. On the booster reel, we had requested 200 feet of booster line. IPS was the only one that offered that. So we went with that, but other than that, the specs were pretty much across the board. But
That was a $20,000 difference, both 2017 F550 chassis.
Right, absolutely.
$20,000 difference between the low bid and the high bid.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't have the breakdown of how they come up with that answer, so. None of these apparatus, Phelps Brothers, IPS, or Lakes Region, I have never personally bought anything from any of them. I did talk to the IPS salesman and asked if he had anything local that was sold, and he said that New Hampshire, Mass, most of their stuff is in New Hampshire, Mass, because they're based out of Massachusetts. I do know they sell our air packs and stuff like that, but they do have trucks out there. I did ask, if need be, if I could get contact with fire chiefs, the fire department that has bought apparatus from them, and he said, yeah, no problem. He can give them, so I could call and see if they have any issues with them whatsoever. Bulldog, the representative for Phelps Brothers, Bulldog is the one who bought our ambulance, but Phelps Brothers is a different company, and I've never actually bought a truck from them either, so. But it looks like, I mean, IPS looked, and Reno, I went through it, and it looked like the specs were right down through it, so.
Phone package, would there be anything that would make a difference in price on that, or is that the phone package is standard? Because I mean, that one did have a little bit of difference in money from the IPS was significantly lower for the price. So, I mean, could we be getting a non-appropriate phone package with this, or?
No, it's listed as a Scotty, and that's what we asked for, so that's pretty standard, so.
Any other questions? And these funds are coming from the fire department TIF.
Yeah, the utility safety TIF. At this writing, we have $82,125.01 in there. We'll be adding $40,199.70 in this year's tax cycle to the TIF, which gives us a total of $122,324.71 for the purchase of the unit. We also have, in the past, we're now Ford is a fleet provider for us, and we get a discount from Ford Motor Company. I think it's I want to say it's $3,500, but I could be wrong, I don't recall. And then we'll pursue the Ford Motor Company discount as a result of whoever we award the bid to. We'll have to work out the logistics in terms of making sure that the money is there. So even if you provide approval tonight, we still have some more legwork to do to make sure that we're gonna meet all the things that we need to meet as well, and financially be able to make sure that all the money's gonna come from the.
So I'd like the chief to follow up with people who have used these machines at this point in time, see what kind of feedback you get.
Absolutely.
That's the best reference.
Yep. Yeah, the other thing that I traditionally do is if we finally decide on a company, I usually sit down with the vendors themselves, and we go line by line to make sure exactly what we're getting, what it says in the paper. And that way, by both of us initial it, they're saying that they're offering me what I've asked for, and that I agree that they're giving it to me, so.
How long was that 115,775 good for?
You know,
I don't think there was a time sensitive issue on it. Chief, in your paperwork, do they have a time sensitive?
No, I didn't see anything. I know traditionally they're good for about 30 days.
Yeah, so I mean, that's going to your funding issue, there's 80,000 in there now. I was gonna ask how we're gonna fund the remainder of that if we were to say we're gonna purchase it today.
Right, well, my thought would be that we'd have to work out a purchase and sale to indicate, it's gonna take them, how long to build the truck?
Did he?
Roughly 9 months.
Yeah.
So we're looking 9 months in. I'll have to just double check the collection of the money there. I think we're gonna have the money to make the purchase. Again, we wouldn't purchase and we didn't have the money.
So they know that. I mean, if we award them the bid, it's going to be 9 months before, how much do they want down?
I didn't see any down payments asked for up.
at all.
That doesn't mean they're not gonna
Collect their
come back when.
0.5% interest rate on our money.
When they do, all the financial sections is done with the town manager, so if they ask for something, I'm sure he'll bring it back to the board.
Gentlemen?
So, do you wanna make an award this
I'd like,
evening?
yeah, I'd like to make an award, if you feel comfortable with it, so we can get the ball rolling.
Yeah, I guess it would be contingent on his discussion with other.
Yep. And contingent on financing.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Then we'll second that. Any more discussion on this? All in favor? And Jason is abstaining. So that gives you your direction there.
All right, thank you very much.
And new business, renewal of automobile graveyard junkyard permits, and I have AIM Recycling USA.
Yep, we received the CEO reviewed it, checked off on it, we received the fee, and we, based on staff's review, that everything's okay to sign.
Motion to approve the application then.
Second?
All right, all in favor? All right, that takes care of them. And the second one is for Du Bois. It's
Yep.
for Marcel Du Bois, EPA Du Bois Motors.
Yes, as I understand, staff has also reviewed this one. The application's been filled out and the appropriate funding has been provided to the town. In my view, that we'll go ahead and sign this one as well.
Both of these are your state permit.
Yes.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Yeah. Oh, I guess this is the regular permit. And the payroll and the payable warrants? Second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Other business, John did present us with a letter, and what is your pleasure as to?
Well, questions should be answered, there's no
Yep.
doubt about that, so I think we need to, at the next meeting, I know that you've given us a letter, but I think we ought to go through this due diligence and make sure that everything was done right. Report back to the board, and it's my board, I don't know if anybody else has any other comments or questions.
One consideration is these may be personnel matters you're getting
Yeah.
that may require executive session to do that.
Yes.
Note that. The other thing I would like to point out is, I watched the meeting, and I heard members of the planning board over and over again say, we don't have any enforcement authority. But you do. It's called revocation of the permit. You hold a meeting, they're not in compliance, you revoke. That revocation goes to the CEO. That's where the stop work order comes from.
Well, now, we are unaware that we have the ability, because there's nothing in the ordinance that says that we can pull a permit. If you guys are telling us that we can pull a permit, I'll hang the planning board's hat on that issue.
Why not? I mean, if somebody's not in compliance, you give them a hearing, they come in without an excuse, you revoke,
I agree, I think it would be that simple.
I don't think it's his job.
We just did not know if,
you know?
we didn't know if we have the authority to do that. If you were to- if the selectmen say that, to me, as the chairman of the planning board, that we have that authority, we will exercise that authority.
That's, as far as I'm concerned, that's the procedure should be
And then
followed.
that would go to the CEO?
You
and the
go to the CEO, if you need to record something in the registry, that's what you do. That's the enforcement mechanism from the planning board standpoint.
Okay. That would be great.
But at the same time, Tom, isn't it so that the code enforcement officer, we have one to enforce the code? So if there's a violation, that's his job.
Absolutely, but, I mean, if you revoke the permit, whether it's a conditional
Well-
use, whether it's a subdivision approval, that goes to him. That's where the stop work order should come from, right?
So it would be a secondary level of authority.
What do you mean by that?
The code officer would normally handle it first.
Right, but I think you guys, as planning board members, need to initiate that. I don't know what a resolution or whatever this,
Well, the planning board did try to initiate it, nothing.
I know, I don't know what that is, a resolution of enforcement. I mean, I've never heard of that, but I mean, I think that's the procedure you need to follow.
Okay. We can list that out in our conditions of approval. We can make note of the fact that if these conditions are not met, then the planning board will revoke the permit.
And it's,
Okay.
it's a lot easier, I think.
Well, and I understand. We just didn't know if we could
Right.
do it.
I thought you could do that all along.
None of us are aware that we could do that.
The planning board issues a permit, and if the requirements are not met, the planning board should be able to revoke that permit.
I agree, and I like it. We had the discussion with the town planner, and nobody knew for sure whether or not that could be done.
I think the planning board in the past has asked the planner to go to the CEO and revoke or issue stop orders, or, seems to me I recall some of that in the past.
We have asked the planner to do it, but we've never actually sat down and said, we're revoking that permit.
Right. That's the first thing you have to do. Then that goes to the CEO, something's recorded in the registry, you go to subdivision plan, record it there, something in the registry that application, that plan is now revoked.
Okay.
But,
Put that in my back pocket.
John, I will disagree with one thing in your letter here, that there is nothing clear and simple. And there is always gray areas, I assure you.
Well,
I may be prejudiced, but going to legal counsel is not a bad idea.
You must say that as a lawyer. I understand.
But does that clear up some of that?
That's gonna help us from the planning board a great deal, because honestly, we sat there, we debated amongst ourselves, we're going, nothing is happening, what are we going to do? And we kept waiting, and we kept waiting, and, you know, we didn't know that we could do
You
it.
put it on an
So we-
agenda item and you hold the hearing, okay? Why isn't this being complied with? Maybe there's a legitimate excuse. You ought to hear it and make a decision based upon that. If there isn't, you know,
Okay.
You have a list of conditions about this long now.
Yeah, we can just
If you add one more, it's not gonna make that much difference.
Yeah.
It's already
And
there.
shorten them up. Sitting there having to
Well,
read,
it
I
would be
have to
nice,
shorten them up.
it would be nice if you'd shrink them down to 4 pages.
Yeah.
I've heard that for a long time, and it's never happened.
Try reading all of those, Phil.
I just think
Does that
we-
answer some of your questions, John?
Not really. It clarifies future procedure, maybe, a future approach to it. It doesn't clarify what this addresses. It doesn't answer the questions, because it's still the CEO that we have hired to enforce the ordinance. He was notified that there was a violation, and absolutely nothing happened.
So I guess that was my point on earlier when I said, you know, we need to have these questions answered. You know, I mean, we'd like to, you know, what happened? Did somebody make a mistake? You were trying to do the right thing or not? Who knows? But I think we need to go through this and make sure that, you know, we're all doing the right thing and we're as transparent as possible. So
That's
get
my
something from
purpose
the
for
CEO
presenting
also.
this, because I want this process to be open and transparent, and I want to make sure things were done right. And from my point of view, I haven't been able to get good answers to those questions, and they don't look like the right procedure was followed. So if it was, great. That's why I brought them forward.
Okay. We will have something at the next meeting?
Yeah, we'll have to.
From you
I'll-
and the CEO.
I'll bring the CEO and myself, we'll go to executive session, we'll
Yep.
discuss it.
I think we have to do that, John, because it's possibly personnel issues that are going to be discussed.
Only if it was a CEO non-performance issue. Other than
That's
that,
what
I
this
don't
sounds
remember
like.
it was personnel. Excuse me?
That's what this, only, wait a minute.
Only if it was a CEO non-performance issue.
What's the allegation here, isn't it?
No,
Oh, no?
not at all. That's not the allegation.
Okay, tell me what the allegation is.
That is simply that it's a possibility that that existed, but I don't believe from what the facts I know that that was true. I just put it here as a possibility.
Okay.
But I understand, you know, if it's a personnel issue, obviously you have to do executive session. But if not, you know, I would hope you wouldn't.
Well, if you're just looking for an explanation of how things transpired.
Well, basic answers to the questions. You know, those comments in parentheses are simply my comments and my observation of the situation. They may not be 100% accurate because when I spoke to Keith, as he said, I don't know all the details. So if there are details here that clarify these questions, wonderful.
Okay.
All right, any other business?
Fine, I was hoping you guys would run late, because I don't want to have to go home and watch the debate.
Well,
There's always a Discovery Channel.
yeah, take your time going home.
I'm just trying to get a book out and read.
Turner
Isn't
Classic
there a
Movies,
sports bar somewhere?
TCM.
Red Sox?
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
No, not tonight, that's right. Hey, I make a motion, we adjourn.
All right, second, all in favor? All right.
That's right, Red Sox.
Fun watching that.
You're in trouble now, John.
That's shredding, I put it in the shredding box.
Okay.
Thank you. My poor shredder at home is gonna be tired, looking up and almost on battery. Like shred everything I can get my hands on, get my name on it.